Hello everyone. My name is Neha Jingra and I work for CLASP. CLASP is an international not-for-profit with the mission to accelerate transition to a sustainable world. I welcome you all at this event on accelerating sustainable cooling in the era of industry. I feel this is a very timely conversation to have as we face intense heat waves, rising temperatures, ever rising cooling demand, resulting in climate change. As per the IEA forecast, without action to address energy efficiency, energy demand for cooling will more than triple by 2050, consuming as much electricity as all of China and India today. Air conditioning is expected to increase significantly with rising incomes, but it is also likely that many who need cooling will not have access to it. Yet, it is often overlooked as an urgent development issue. So we have this event with the objective to discuss the nexus between energy access and access to sustainable cooling, to showcase country and regional actions on progress and alignment between the NDCs and national cooling action plans, and to explore innovations in digital technologies, business models, and manufacturing of new sustainable cooling solutions that address the rising future demand in the on and off grid area. Moving on to the format of the event, we will start with a wake up call and call to action by Brian Dean, followed by a panel discussion and call to action by country representatives from Seychelles and Rwanda. Now, I'd like to invite Brian Dean, but before that, I'd like to introduce him. Uh, Brian has 24 years of experience in energy efficiency and has supported governments and organizations globally with energy efficiency policy. Brian joined SE for All as Head of Energy Efficiency and Cooling and was previously an official at the IEA, where he was lead for energy efficiency in building. Brian, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Neha, and hello, everyone. Let me just share my window here with you. I can get going with the slides. And I understand you can should be able to double click on the slides if you want to see them larger. At SE for All, we have been working on the access to cooling agenda for a number of years now. And the first report that did it was Chilling Prospects. And then since that report in 2018, we've been tracking sustainable cooling and cooling for all, really, each year. Our latest information you can find if you go to seforall.org/cooling. And thanks to our funders, the Kigali Cooling Efficiency Program and the Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation, we've been able to make this available and really push free information and tools out to everyone. That's really our goal. So obviously with the pandemic, here we are all remote with each other, and the pandemic has had a major effect on people all around the world. And when it comes to looking at the access to cooling issue, when it comes to poverty, we found that almost 70 million additional people in just the 54 high-impact cooling for all countries were forced into extreme poverty. This means that those that already have difficulty getting access to cooling have even more difficulty, and this puts more people into the high risk category when it comes to access to cooling. So we track globally what the high risk, medium risk, and low risk access to cooling gaps are. And of course, what we found this year, due to the pandemic and other factors, we've seen a real increase, a significant increase in the high risk. 50 million people are now, 50 million more people are at high risk than the year before, and an additional 160 million in the medium risk. Low risk has actually gone down, but there's still a large portion there of this middle income that are still at risk, though. So overall, a really great. Let's see. Okay. Sorry, I was just looking at the comments there. So overall, there's a lot of people at risk, over 1 billion that are at high risk, and over 2 billion at lower middle income. So how do we look at these risks? Well, we look at where people are located, we look at temperatures, we look at their incomes, and really their ability to have access to cooling. Well, what is access to cooling? It's not just an air conditioner or refrigerator. It is those, but it's also other features, the ability for us to thermally stay cool, but also for agricultural products to make it to the market without food waste, and of course, medical vaccines and medicines making it to the end destination so that we can all get healthily vaccinated and have our medical care. So it's really a really comprehensive issue. And when we think about this Industry 4.0, we need to think a little bit deeper about how we can use data to better understand where we have opportunities to improve access to cooling. So in this particular slide, you'll see we've looked at a couple of states in Mexico, which Mexico itself is not a high impact country because it's a relatively mild on average. Electricity access is quite good and incomes are quite good for a country. But when you zero in on a few states, you start to see that there are obviously hot regions that are highly dense populations and that do have incomes that include urban and rural poor populations. So when you take that and we look across additional countries, so this year we took an additional step to say beyond these high impact countries, the ones that are very hot, poor, and have poor access to electricity, what's happening in the sort of the next tier of countries. So we looked at an additional 22 countries where cooling risks are real, and additional 147 million people at risk in these additional 22 countries, of which you can see the 25.1 and the 5.8 million that are at high risk because of being either in the urban poor or the rural poor. So Mexico, Nepal, Ethiopia, and Colombia are the four big new countries that are beyond the 54 high impact access to cooling countries. So you add all this up, and of course we have a map that shows where we have high risk populations, and we still have the critical 9 countries like India, Nigeria, China, and beyond. But we're now looking at 76 countries and 1.12 billion people that we find to be at high risk. So these are the ones that need the cooling solutions. So where do we go from here? Well, I've got 2 call to actions, one on the National Cooling Action Plans, and we know that there's progress. There's only a few that have been fully published, and really only 2 of the critical 9 countries have published their National Cooling Action Plan. That's India and China. There's a lot of other ones in progress, and great to see that Indonesia has just started. But there's a lot of room for improvement and growth here, and so a call to action is certainly to be supporting our countries to be planning for cooling. And the second call to action is really about sharing the word on the solutions. So we know that there's a number of solutions out there. They're not always active solutions. Sometimes they're passive, portable shading for an agricultural sector, or shading in schools, or cool roofs for warehouses and for industrial facilities. Really the number of solutions out there are significant, and we're starting to capture many of them through the This Is Cool campaign, and you can go to thisiscool.seforall.org to find more. And certainly we encourage everyone to look for great solutions and to share the information globally with everyone. So with that, I will turn it back over to you, Neha, for the panel.
Thank you so much, Brian, for setting the stage and sharing the great analysis, highlighting the importance of access to cooling in today's era. For today's panel discussion, I'm delighted to share with everyone that we have with us 4 eminent speakers to bring diverse international experience on sustainable cooling. So we have with us on the panel today Oxam Tefera from Climate Works Foundation, Kuda from SADC Center of Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency, Sebin Besniat, Green Climate Fund, and Bettina Schreck from Montreal Protocol Division at UNIDO. I will first request each speaker to briefly share their reflections on sustainable cooling solutions, and then we can have a dedicated question and answer round from the audience. And then I would also like to request each speaker to share their remarks within 5 minutes so that we have enough time for the discussion. So I'll first like to invite Oxam Tefera. She's an Associate Director of the Kigali Cooling Efficiency Program at the Climate Works Foundation. She brings over a decade of experience in climate and energy policy, strategic planning, and program implementation. And prior to joining Climate Works, she spent several years overseeing efficiency, renewable energy, and electrification programs in state and regional government. So, Oxam, it will be great if you could share with us a little bit about the origins and what led to the origin of Kigali Cooling Efficiency Program, and also if you could reflect upon why are national cooling action plans needed and how are they linked to the nationally determined contributions to start with. Thank you.
Sure. So for some background, I do work for the Kigali Cooling Efficiency Program, also known as KCEP. And we were formed 4 years ago following the adoption of the Kigali Amendment to the Montreal Protocol. And this is an international agreement of 197 countries that committed to cutting the production and consumption of hydrofluorocarbons, or HFCs, by more than 80% by mid-century. The Kigali Amendment has the potential to avoid up to 0.4 degrees Celsius of global warming by the end of the century, and the enhanced energy efficiency of cooling doubling those climate benefits. At the time of Kigali's adoption, leading climate foundations pledged more than $50 million to create the largest ever fund of its kind for action on efficient climate-friendly cooling, and that became KCEP. And since 2017, we've worked with many global partners, including quite a few on this panel, to place the sector on a path to net zero cooling. So together, we've really utilized a suite of tools, including policy, finance, industry engagement, and demonstrations to scale efficient climate-friendly cooling, while also very importantly, to significantly increase access to cooling for the most vulnerable and marginalized people around the world. KCEP's primary focus is on cooling appliance efficiency and to pair those with the enhancements with climate-friendly refrigerants. And I'll just underscore a point made earlier of why this is important. Global cooling demand is expected to triple over the next 30 years, and without intervention, that could double greenhouse gas emissions from the sector. Energy demand from cooling is massive and only growing as more ACs come online. And to put things into context, last year, new electric load from AC demand growth eclipsed new installed solar capacity around the world. So the cooling sector must significantly curb emissions if we're to keep people cool, while also maximizing the benefits of a global renewable energy transition. On national cooling plans, or NCAPs, in recent years, as summers continue to get hotter and demand for cooling increases, governments have begun to see the value of these plans. And Brian noted there aren't enough out there right now, but many are in development. So we're excited to see this trend. Because NCAPs provide a blueprint to both curb emissions from the cooling sector and increase cooling access to keep people and communities safe and resilient from heat. They're meant to be comprehensive of all cooling demand and supply and inclusive of integrated approaches to improve efficiency, while also increasing the use of climate-friendly refrigerants, passive cooling solutions, and other locally specific strategies. A best practice with national cooling action plans is to strengthen its linkage to government's overall comprehensive climate plans. This includes, of course, countries' nationally determined contributions, or NDCs. And as many know, NDCs are countries' national climate plans, and they're updated and submitted every 5 years as part of the Paris Climate Agreement. Just as NCAPs should feed into NDCs, NDCs should also be inclusive of cooling strategies. And our program, KSEP, has actually awarded grants to 10 countries seeking to include cooling in their enhanced NDCs and are ready to begin implementation on various projects ranging from passing more stringent efficiency standards to creating a national market for district cooling or scaling sustainable cold chain to protect vulnerable food supply from heat. So as of May, 55 countries have actually committed to include action on efficient climate-friendly cooling within their latest NDC submissions. And this is quite a significant leap because only 6 countries did so in 2015's submission for NDCs. So to see 55 now have cooling is remarkable, and we expect to see many more countries following suit ahead of COP26 in Glasgow later this year. So excited to see those developments.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your insights with us. As everyone is aware, India led the way for the world by developing first India Cooling Action Plan and then setting the stage for the rest of the world. So it's very exciting to see that so many countries are now coming up with National Cooling Action Plan and cooling targets, which are part of which are going to be part of the NDCs. And thanks to Kigali Cooling Efficiency Program for supporting the rest of the world to take the leap. Thank you. So let's now turn to our second panelist, Mr. Kuda. So he is Executive Director at SADC, Center of Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency, SACRI. So before SACRI, he has worked as an energy infrastructure expert operating in the SADC region, and previously he worked for the International Renewable Energy Arena in Abu Dhabi since November 2012. So Mr. Kuda, if you would like to throw some light on how can regional cooperation effectively accelerate the uptake of sustainable cooling solution. Also, if you could share key insights from energy efficiency lighting and appliance, that is ELA project, I think it will be very, very helpful for the audience. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Neha. Yes, good day, everybody. Yes, this has been introduced by Neha that I work for the SADC Center for Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency, SACRI. The foundation of SACRI is actually based on cooperation amongst the SADC member states so as to pool resources and harmonize policies, regulations, and strategies. So cooperation, regional integration are the pillars of our foundation. So our programs and projects are therefore aimed at fostering regional cooperation. There are some specific projects, as you've highlighted now, that these projects relate to energy efficiency, and we can draw some lessons on how regional cooperation is helping to strengthen the implementation, the development and implementation of these strategies and actions. So if I can give you an example of the Energy Efficient Lighting and Appliances Program, ELA, which is funded by the Swedish government and implemented by UNIDO in collaboration with us, SACRI, and our counterparts in the East African community. So it involves a total of 21 countries from East Africa to Southern Africa. The objective here of this project is to ensure that there is market adoption of energy efficient, and especially starting off with lighting and moving into other appliances, including equipment for productive use. Since its implementation, this program actually has also even been designed to support some of the regional strategies or regional policy guidelines. For example, in 2019, the region adopted a policy to phase out inefficient lighting. That is the SADC region. And this project, ELA, has come in handy to support that phasing out of inefficient lighting. So what are some of the key steps that we've taken so far to support or in the implementation of the ELA project? We have actually established, we've started working on the minimum energy performance standards for lighting, and we established a technical committee at regional level. And this technical committee's mandate was to develop the minimum energy performance standards for lighting. And we're glad to say in May this year, these minimum energy performance standards were adopted at regional level as a regional standard for lighting, for efficient lighting. And currently, the countries now, the regional countries, have now taken up this standard and are busy adopting them at national level. We are also now, we have started now conducting a market study for productive use equipment, and we are going to use the same regional technical committee to develop minimum managed performance standards for the equipment that would have been identified in the market study. Also, ELA itself has got some of the, is actually currently running a call where we are inviting an expression of interest from private sector so that they can be assisted, they can financially and technically assisted in adopting or implementing energy efficient technologies. Here we're calling for municipalities, we're calling for ESCOs or energy service companies and the like, that they can apply for assistance, and then they can be assisted in implementing energy efficient lighting and appliances projects. Another project that we are also working on, where we can draw some lessons at regional level, is that we are using the same regional structures, such as the technical committees, to develop minimum managed performance standards for air conditioners and refrigerating appliances. This we're doing together with UNEP and United for Efficiency. And lastly, we are also working on standards for refrigeration and distribution transformers, together with CTC and UNEP in 8 countries in the region. That is Botswana, Eswatini, Lesotho, Malawi, Namibia, Tanzania, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. And again, we're going to use the same regional structures and same approach that we've used in ELA. So this emphasizes the need for regional cooperation and regional integration. So indeed, with regional cooperation, we can attain a lot since our challenges are uniform. Hence, we need a harmonized approach to addressing these challenges. With that, I thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kuda, for sharing your thoughts. And I'm very glad to also share that CLASP, the organization that I work for, is working with Zachary in this project. So the insights as well as the outcomes are very, very valuable and very, very encouraging. So thank you for that. Now moving on to the next presenter, Mr. Sabin Besniat. He's a senior energy efficiency specialist at Green Climate Fund. Sabin has more than 22 years of experience in energy efficiency across multiple regions and developmental organizations like IFC, World Bank, GCF, and UNEP. He's currently leading the EE sector and developing investment pathways for GCF investment in energy efficiency, and has worked to develop policies and regulations, innovative finance mechanisms with both public and private sector actors, and design projects and programs that can bring about market transformation in energy efficiency, including cooling. So Sabin, if you could please share with us that what percentage or what share of GCF funded projects contribute to sustainable cooling solutions? And since sustainable cooling falls under both the mitigation and adaptation umbrella, do you anticipate more funds being targeted to this area? Thank you. You're muted. If you could, yeah, please unmute yourself. Thank you.
Okay. Yep. Thank you. Sorry, technical glitch. Yeah. No. Thank you very much for this. It's great to hear from you, Brian. From XM as well as from Kuda on different things that are happening. When it comes to GCF, I mean, right now, GCF has about 8.5 billion portfolio. Well, actually 9 billion, because we just approved 500 million a couple of weeks ago. So out of the 9 billion, I'm sad to say that the cooling probably, I mean, I tried to do some portfolio hacking before this call, and then I think I came up with a number somewhere around 70 to 80 million, which could be kind of assigned to cooling. So there is not a dedicated cooling. I mean, there are building efficiencies where cooling is part of it. So it's not all that great. So that, and I think this is one of the things that me and my team are really trying to address, is try to put cooling in as part of our agenda for GCF. I mean, and I think we've kind of done that in terms of our updated strategic plan, when we're really kind of focusing our energy efficiency interventions towards cooling. So I mean, cooling has been highlighted there. So we are really looking into this. And like you mentioned, I mean, Neha, is that cooling is actually one of those things which actually one sector which actually has a both mitigation and adaptation benefit. And as GCF, as we are the largest climate fund in the world, and then our investment thesis is really about providing a 50-50 balance in our investment portfolio for mitigation and adaptation. So I think among all the sectors that we work in the GCF, I think cooling is one of those that really gives us that strategic underpinning. And I think the key thing that we're really trying to do on the cooling side of things is really kind of incorporate the different elements that we have in the GCF. I mean, we have 3 financing funding windows in the GCF. One which we call our Readiness Funding, which is a TA funding that we provide to our countries. It's about $1 million per year per country. So the countries actually have have the ability to basically design a project or design multiple projects or multiple interventions in the countries to really kind of prep them up for climate interventions. And then so one of the things that we're really trying to do with our readiness is really kind of lead our countries to really kind of work on things like minimum energy performance standards. I mean, the 8 countries that Kuda just mentioned, I mean, those are things with CTCN that we are also financing through Readiness, the 8 countries, as well as a couple of other countries in Asia Pacific that are working on refrigeration MEPs, which we are working with UNEP U4E on. And then aside from that, I mean, I think the other thing that we're really trying to really kind of enhance with countries is to really focus on NCAPs as part of the cooling. And then this is something that we've also had a couple of conversations with KSEP as well, so that, we're trying to make sure that all the countries that KSEP is already providing services to, that we are trying to complement that. So we don't want to duplicate the work. I mean, I think as it is, resources are very scarce. So we want to make sure that all the money that's coming in for these kind of good work is getting used in the right places. So I mean, so the readiness is becoming one of the key things, and then I think we're going to see a couple of really, hopefully, a pipeline of cooling projects being developed. The second part where I think we're really focusing on is our funding proposal. I mean, so this is where we do our bulk of our investments. Our $8.5 billion is our funding proposals, and then we basically laid out our funding proposal especially for cooling and energy efficiency on what we call our 2-prong approach, wherein is one prong is really about setting the enabling environment. Because I mean, I think one of the things that we've seen, well, especially I've seen in the energy efficiency world in the last 22 years, with IFC, with UNEP, is you can put investment, you can develop credit lines, but if you don't have an enabling environment that really kind of pushes the envelope, and then it really kind of gets things moving from one bank to another bank, you're not really doing your job properly. So that's why we've really kind of focused on that. So we're really, and this is where NCAPs, MEPs, as well as other policy measures like import taxations or incentives and all of that kind of stuff, building that in, and then coming up with the investment. And on the investment side is the GCF. We are a very we're a risk-taking fund. So I mean the risk here, I won't say the better, but I mean we will entertain those riskier projects, and that's what we're meant for, right? I mean, if there's and we're really looking to see what kind of business models that we can work with. I mean, can this work? Can this not work? Let's try it out, and if it works, I mean, these are the things that we would really like to push forward, because I mean, if we can use our capital to really kind of push an innovative business model out there, and then commercial banks take charge of it, then I think we've done our job, right? So I mean, and I think these are these little wins that we're really looking for. And then we actually have a couple of projects in our pipeline, and we actually have a pretty decent big one, which hopefully will come to the board soon. Wherein we're not just looking at, we're looking at multiple countries, and even in multiple countries, we're looking at multiple business models within these countries as well. So it's not just, saying, oh yeah, we're going to set up a credit line in 8 countries and then go forward, but it's kind of like, a little bit of ESCO here, something that deals with funds on another one, cooling as a service in another country, and then, and building multiple angles from passive cooling to cool roofs as an adaptive measure to efficient equipment. So it's kind of got everything in there. I mean, I just hope that this is going to be one of those pioneer projects that really kind of set the stage for cooling. It's going to be a big one, but sincerely hope that this doesn't become a Christmas tree, that when we try everything and all of a sudden nothing works. Hopefully that's not the case. But the call for action from my side is, please, if you have any ideas, please come and reach out to us. Like I said, I think we're more than happy to kind of work with countries, agencies. We are already working with a lot of the people in this forum already. So yes, thank you very much. And let me end there.
Thank you so much, Eben. I think your remarks are very, very encouraging for a lot of people, because you said that, you are open to taking, the organization is open to taking a lot of risks. So I'm sure there are a lot of people who are trying new and innovative technologies and who will be very, very encouraged by your remarks. And also, I'm glad to hear that, even though the current share of cooling portfolio is small, but then you and your team are trying to increase it. So thanks for that. So now up next, I'd like to invite Bettina Schreck. She's Industrial Development Officer at UNIDO. And Ms. Bettina Schreck joined UNIDO in 2009, where her main tasks are developing and implementing technical assistant projects in sustainable energy and climate change. She focuses on the development of government-led policy programs to adopt low-emission and sustainable cooling projects. Her work currently covers the policy, financial, and technical dimensions of the technical assistance. And prior to UNIDO, she held positions in the Irish National Utility International Operations, SP, as a renewable energy and CDM business developer in Southeast Asia. So, Bettina, how can innovations in digital technologies and manufacturing of new sustainable cooling solutions help address the rising future cooling demands? And what successful example is UNIDO observing in the cooling sector? If you could throw some lights on these two things, I think that would be very,
thanks,
very
Neha,
good.
for the question.
Thank you.
So when addressing the rising future cooling demands, the end users of refrigeration systems can benefit from promoting both the use of low global warming potential refrigerants and energy efficiency technology simultaneously. And I think it's important that the dimensions are taken simultaneously to ensure that we have quicker action. What opportunities do we see to save energy in these sectors? In this context of refrigerant transition, we have considered the reduced need of cooling, so reducing cooling loads, the selection of appropriate refrigerants, the use of high efficiency components and system design, ensuring proper installation, optimized control and operation, all under common operating conditions, and designing features that will support servicing and maintenance. Now, let me focus on the final one. So energy savings related to servicing and maintenance can easily make up to 20% of the overall system performance in the air conditioning sector. And when new equipment is being developed, designers should consider that servicing and maintenance aspects are key throughout the lifetime of any system. Proper servicing and maintenance ensures that startup practices and operation can deliver on the energy consumption. And if you can properly service and maintain, you would have energy losses that cannot be recovered for the rest of the end of life of the equipment. So an important aspect of service and maintenance is including instrumentation such as energy meters and key temperature controls. And it's not uncommon to find that industrial systems typically operate below their peak efficiency. And this comes from having good monitoring and control systems that can help the plant operators in checking performance and correcting any energy wasting faults. What we do find is that in many, many countries, the technical skills are still lacking. Sabine spoke of enabling environments that are needed to ensure that the countries can run policies and the enterprises can adopt technologies that will ensure that energy efficiency measures are adopted. What we have done in UNIDO, and this is something that's also done by the other implementing agencies to the multilateral fund, is supporting end user training programs. And to date, the programs have been separated. Most of them have focused either on minimizing leaks or improving energy efficiency, where it's systems optimization on energy management systems. But the drive should be now to integrate these programs. What we have found last year, the 2020 has catalyzed this change, First, because we had to fully digitalize these training programs to ensure that all people can access information and that we continue training regardless of the pandemic. And we find that by doing this transition to digital training systems, we have higher participation and that we are able to reach more people. So overall, what we find is, just to summarize, the need to integrate both aspects, and that by digitalizing, we can access more people. Thanks.
Thanks, Bettina. I think this is very, you've highlighted a very important aspect, which is operations and maintenance, which is often underlooked. And because of that, there are a lot of costs and a lot of maintenance related issues that people face. So I think it's a very, very integral yet underlooked component. So thanks for highlighting that. Now, I have one question for Oxum or Bettina, whoever thinks it's appropriate for them. So the question is that what are the key components of a holistic approach to addressing the high demand for clean cooling solutions within the context of Sustainable Development Goals, Kigali Amendment, and further basically international commitments? So any of you would like to respond to that?
I'm afraid I would be iterating what Aksum said in her intervention. She described, I think, very nicely. She explained how by combining the actions in the National Cooling Action Plans, you can address simultaneously Sustainable Development Goals, Paris Agreement commitments, Kigali Amendment commitments, and it's more a matter of having well-structured action plans at the national levels, integrated, for example, within the HCFC or HFC management plans that countries are already taking forward, or the future unexpected Kigali implementation plans that all countries should take forward to address their commitments to the Montreal Protocol.
And that was a very good, succinct way of explaining it. I'll just add, I think it's important in a holistic approach to ensure that each stakeholder is active in their role to contributing to implementation. And so, for governments, that means making sure they ratified Kigali, that they're adopting these minimum energy performance standards, setting up labeling programs to communicate to consumers which appliances are best performing, and then to have financial institutions and utilities create financing programs, incentives to make things accessible to consumers of all income levels. And then industry really needs to focus on raising ambition and upgrading their product lines on both the efficiency and refrigerant side. So it's a complex system, but that's what will really help to catapult the sector into the more net zero direction.
Thank you, Oxum. My next question is for Sebin. To contribute, how do you contribute, or what are your reflections on rising innovations in cold chain technologies and operating models in the off-grid sector in particular? And if anybody else would also like to share their thoughts, please feel free to. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that this is becoming a critical piece. I think, one of the things that when we thought about cooling, and this was actually, just to kind of give you an idea, when we first started off cooling in the GCF, when we started the conversation, so everybody in the fund was more like, oh, are we just going to be doing air conditioning? And that's when it was like, well, it's air conditioning is one part, but your whole cold chain is a whole new ball game. And I think that's what actually hit home for most of the people in the fund as well, where it's like, okay, air conditioning is a big part, but there is a lot that we can done when you're looking at food security, and then food waste and everything else. As you know, I think the food waste accounts for almost about 30% of the greenhouse gas emissions, and that's post harvest, from post harvest to retail. And then, especially in the developing world, most of that emission is actually happening from the farms to the retail stores. So I mean, there is a lot that needs to be done on the from that point of view. Whereas in the developing world, it's most of the waste is actually at the household level, right? So and then the technologies that are there, I mean, it's not rocket science per se, right? I mean, I think the whole idea is about, you know, the technologies are there, and then off-grid technology is also there. But I think the key thing that's missing from our point of view is we're missing the policies and the enabling environment to really kind of get cold, you know, have a proper incentive on the cold chains. And number two is about we're missing the whole business model for cold chains. Because I mean, I think the whole part is how do you bring you know, more incentives into the farmers. So one of the ideas that we actually have in this rainbow project that I was talking about is we're calling it the cooling hub. So the cooling hub is basically where you're kind of setting up a service-oriented cooling system, where, especially for off-grid systems, you're not just only providing a cold chain supply, but you're also providing other benefits like agronomical benefits. You're providing, you know, financing benefits, everything that comes in together. So, you know, it becomes more of a service-oriented supply model, as opposed to just, you know, you're buying and then, you know, you're implementing. So I think, you know, these are kind of things that we really need to look at. I mean, and not all, it's not a silver bullet per se, but I think that the main thing that we really need to understand is what is the climate impact, what is the environment impact, and how do we basically convert that into some sort of an economic benefit, wherein, you know, you have both the farmers and then the food suppliers, as well as the cold chain entrepreneurs, you know, making some profits, right? So and tying all of that together. So I think, you know, there's much to be done, and I think for us, we're really excited about it, because I think it's this is a market that we're seeing that's going to grow very, very fast and very quickly.
Thank you. I think I would like to also emphasize that cold chain is a very, very complex area, and it intersects across different value chains. So this includes agriculture, and especially in the current state that the world is in, particularly in the pandemic, you know, in the health sector, the importance of cold chain cannot be you know, more emphasized. So I think it is really important to focus on access to cold chain as well as efficiency, so that, you know, we are able to reach out to maximum number of people with the least amount of energy consumption. So I'm glad that GCF is going to focus on that, apart from air conditioning as well in the cooling sector. We have a question from the audience. I think Mr. Kuda could respond to that. So the question is that in Nigeria, where epileptic power supply still persists, renewable energy projects are being promoted, but still there are some issues with the quality of lighting. So how to basically support the government on improving the quality of service in the region as well as in the countries? So if you could respond to that, thank you.
Yes, thanks. They are confined to Nigeria, but it's a common challenge. You know, security of supply is quite a big issue. Exactly. With regards to the question, specifically to Nigeria's question, unfortunately, Nigeria is not within our mandate as SACRI, because they fall outside our SADC region.
I think I lost you for a minute.
Way before us, energy efficiency, and it works on the same principles as us. So, and it covers Nigeria. And I believe they are also seized with issues of energy efficiency, especially looking at the issues around standards. I'm quite aware of the issues around cooling, which they are very much involved, energy efficient cooling, which they are very much involved in, as well as issues around distribution transformers and other appliances. So I would urge Patricia to approach the ECOWAS Center for Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency, and they can work together with them. And by the way, we are also part of the global network of sustainable energy centers, which covers all the centers across all sustainable energy centers across the globe. So I'll type in the contacts for the ECWA Center for Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency so that Patricia can contact them directly. Thank you.
Thank you. So before I move on to the next phase of the discussion, I just want to ask, in case anybody would like to share, any of the panelists would like to share any further thoughts or would have any questions for each other or for anyone else. So I'd like to, open the floor for discussion.
Maybe I may take advantage and abuse the platform that I've got the mic on. Yes, I think the issue of cold chains is very critical, especially for us as a region. Within the water energy food nexus, which the SADC region has adopted as a regional framework of addressing water issues, energy issues, and food security issues, we've been advised that we should be implementing, whenever we implement energy projects, we should consider the other two, that is water and water and food, and vice versa. So we are actually in the process of identifying areas where cold chains are critical and how then this can be implemented within the water energy food nexus. So I'm glad that Sabine has also highlighted that cold chains are critical, and it's something that as a GCF I would be keen to see them playing a big role and being addressed holistically. So at SACRI, we're very keen to work with partners that we can, within the water energy food nexus, that we can address the issues of cold chain, not only for the food part, but also the cold chains associated with health facilities, cold chains associated with any other services that will require cold appliances or services along the value chain. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Koda, for sharing your insights on the cold chain. And as I said earlier, it's a very complex issue, and the importance of it is re-emphasized in the current scenario that the world is living in, both from health as well as agricultural perspective. It addresses various targets that are laid out in the Sustainable Development Goals, which include might range from equity to gender to providing access of electricity to all. So I think it is very, very important, and it is the way to go. So thank you. So I would like to thank all the panelists and for sharing their thoughts and perspective. I think we had an excellent round of discussion, and thank you for sharing your thoughts and perspectives with everyone. Thank you so much. So unless anyone has anything else to share, I'd like to then move on to call to action and sharing country perspectives. Thank you so much. Thank you. So
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, panelists.
Thank you. So we have with us Cynthia Alexander, and she is Principal Officer at Renewable Energy and Energy Management at Seychelles Energy Commission. Cynthia has been working on supporting the regulation of electricity sector, as well as to implement the energy policies and strategies, including the promotion of renewable energy and energy efficiency in the Seychelles. Beautiful place. She works on development and implementation of different renewable energy and energy efficiency projects focused on energy transition for SIDS. Additionally, she is active in education and awareness on renewable energy, energy efficiency, and sustainable development, targeting various groups. So Cynthia, if you could share, your country perspective and address the call to action for the people present here, I think that will be very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Neha. Good afternoon and good evening, everyone. Thank you for the nice introduction with beautiful Seychelles. It is indeed. So as you mentioned, it is a SIDS states and small island developing states, and we rely completely on imported fossil fuel. So energy security has been one of our most important target, and that current energy policy was focusing on addressing this issue by rapid deployment of renewable energy and energy efficiency, and also by diversifying our energy sources. So we have a target of to achieve of through renewable energy 5% by 2020 and 15% by 2030. We are almost there, but COVID pandemic has put a slow phase on us, but still we are progressing. There is the overarching legislation, which is the Energy Act 2012. This provides a framework for regulation promotion of all the renewable energy efficiency market for the energy sector. However, both the policy and the legislation have lacked clarity on mechanisms of implementation for such ambitious targets we have, and also we were not prepared for these new innovative approaches that has been happening every day on an everyday basis when it comes to energy efficiency. It has been a bit difficult to understand energy efficiency when we made the policy in 2010 and what we are experiencing in 2020. Both of them are currently being reviewed at the moment. Cooling is one of the biggest load in Seychelles. Space cooling represents a significant use of energy in buildings nationwide. Like in Seychelles, we have all the weekdays, we have the 2 peaks, and the first peak always represent when the offices start, and all the offices are air conditioned. So you can understand how important it is. Like cooling plays a significant role in our demand. There are opportunities for us to explore new technologies like absorption cooling technologies, SWAC systems, or try a district cooling system, which needs to be assessed and try to be implemented. As a tropical country, we have more solar. However, the lack of space, our geographical location, the size of our country makes it a bit challenging. So we have to go on a slow, progressive way. As an island nation, again, we import most of our goods, be it perishable food items, medicines, or we can talk about electrical appliances. So everything is imported in Seychelles. So you can understand the importance of having proper cold storage facilities, proper standards, minimum energy performance standards for these kind of products, where we can support the climate action that we have been taken. Currently in Seychelles, we have the minimum energy performance standards implemented, but on a voluntary basis, not as a regulation yet. As a country with no manufacturing units or no testing facilities, you can understand how difficult it would be to acknowledge and identify and make the product qualify to the eligibility criteria that we put on place. I'm glad that we are part of the ELA project that was just being discussed by Mr. Kuda. And so, this kind of regional development of standards supports countries like Seychelles, where we will be able to have access to much better reports and information, irrespective of being on the importation side. We are ratifiers of the Kigali Amendment, and our ozone unit has already been mandating the use of refrigerants to make them move from high global warming potential products to low or zero global warming potentials. The nationally determined contributions take the one that we currently working on has taken up the mandate to cap the HFC consumption in 2024. So we have already started our shift towards climate-friendly alternative by putting on levies and taxes on high global warming potential products. But as a country, you can understand that, all these new technologies are coming every day or being implemented every day, and we need to be in phase with the skill development and capacity building to the same level. That is one of the issues that we currently encounter, where we find it difficult to identify right skills to match the right technology, which we are working on. And also, funding is funding of different projects. Like, we have ambitious goals, but when it comes to funding, we find it which takes the priority over which sector. Like just now we were talking about food, water, energy nexus. So we have to prioritize which one goes first and which one leads the other, even though they are all interrelated and cross-cutting as energy. I'm glad that GCF is considering enabling environments to be taken into consideration for new projects. I hope countries like Seychelles will benefit like that, and also cooling to be taken as big projects where it can be funded. So this is what I wanted to share about Seychelles in a nutshell. I hope I was in time. Thank you so much, Neha.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Cynthia. I think it was very interesting to hear about an island nation's perspective, and because sometimes people generally think that since most of the products are imported, so it is very easy to set the maps and then regulate also. But it is very interesting to hear the challenges, yet encouraging to see that despite all these challenges, you've been able to make so much more progress, and we look forward to hearing more and basically seeing more in future. Thank you so much. So now I'll move on to the next and last speaker of the day, Mr. Edward, to share private sector perspective. He's renewable energy expert and consultant and CEO at Grid Energy Rwanda Limited. He's a renewable energy expert with an experience of 15 years, especially in biogas and solar. And he worked on solar mobile irrigation kit and on solar milk chilling transport on motorcycle in Rwanda. So, the Grid Rwanda Limited is a specialized company in developing a refrigerated supply chain for temperature-sensitive agricultural products. So, over to you, Mr. Edward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the panelists, the other discussants. So, I think this discussion has been really insightful. So, to understand how people they really give importance on the cooling solutions, especially in Africa. So maybe allow me to focus mainly on the agriculture, as it has been highlighted by my predecessors. So it has been reported that around 50% of the food produced in Africa are wasted. And according to the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, the FAO, so this amount of food wasted on the continent is enough to feed almost around 300 million people. So among others, poor storage and insufficient infrastructure are instrumental factors in the food waste in Africa. And this is really very big challenge for food security. So we need cold storages to preserve our agricultural produce. So access to sustainable energy and clean cooling is highly important to reduce food waste and provide economic opportunities for farmers and agribusiness operators to make sure that everyone is safe with the food. And when we look at the current situation of COVID-19, food waste seems increasing due to lockdown in different countries. Access to immediate markets of crops after harvest has been a challenge, though this is a food wasted. So this has caused also an increase of food price in some cities. So it is imperative that together we should fight food security and malnutrition by increasing access to sustainable energy and clean cooling technologies that will help us to reduce food waste in Africa. So again, the major challenge in Africa, this agribusiness is mainly operated in the off-grid areas where reliable electricity is not available at all. So in addition to that, logistics and transport of agricultural produce from farms to markets is another challenge. So therefore, that's why I've been really focusing on this challenge to see how, together with others, we can contribute a lot to make sure that we are trying to find a solution for this challenge. So it's from this perspective that I would like to call upon everyone to urgent action for harmonized and well-regulated approaches to facilitate investment in sustainable and clean cooling solutions that revive the economies of different African countries in this current and post-COVID situations. So where we need off-grid cold rooms to preserve our agricultural produce, meat, other crops, but also the vaccines for COVID-19, which is currently increasing in Africa. So we need really cold storages to keep those vaccines safe. But also many Africans, they are farmers. So we need also the off-grid milk chillers to keep our milk fresh. And it's most needed in many regions of Africa. So apart from also those installed cold storages and milk chillers, so we need also to invest much in clean refrigerated transport technologies to make sure that our produce or crops are moving from the farm to markets with safety. So as a private sector, we need to invest much in innovative technologies for affordable refrigerated cargoes, which are very important to help small farmers to reach the markets. So my call to action also goes to government, development partners, to make sure that together we understand and move quickly for the implementation of the clean cooling technologies that will help this continent also to grow through keeping our food safe, but also increasing productivity for our market, but also for our people. So as a private sector also, we need to work together and also to commit our investment in our different countries to make sure we are providing solutions, but also the government also should provide a conducive environment, working environment for private sector to make sure that the investment being invested is profitable for private sector, but also is sustainable for the whole continent, but also for the whole Africans. So apart from this, I think many things have been highlighted by different speakers, and I thank you very much for this opportunity to talk about this. I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Edward, for sharing industry's perspective. I think without industry, it will not be possible to have these sustainable cooling technologies. So in a nutshell, I'd like to say that we are at a critical stage in our battle against climate change, and how we choose to cool ourselves and our lives will determine how successful we are in cooling our planet. And the session today epitomizes some innovative, scalable approaches that can help us achieve this goal. I'd like to close the session by saying that it has been a pleasure to moderate this session, and I want to thank all the speakers and the organizers. And on this note, we will draw the curtain on today's event. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you.